Today, every day, small cap investors visit a Gore knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. A Gore, find your dream.
Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Gore, in which we take the time to sit with small cap executives and talk about what's going on at their companies. With us today, I'm really happy to have her for the first time, Hamutal Yitzhak. She's co-founder and CEO of Elsa Nutrition Holdings. The company trades on the TSXV Venture Exchange under the stock symbol BABY, baby. Great stock symbol, and you'll know why because of what the company's products are. And for our friends in the US, on the QB under BABYF. Now, for those of you new to the company, and it's going to be a lot of you because the company only went public in June, July. And, this is the kind of company that makes me get up in the morning because, Gore loves to discover really great companies. Well, Elsa is an Israeli-based, award-winning, plant-based food nutrition company. And it's a company that finally gives small cap investors an opportunity to participate in this global paradigm shift towards plant-based, clean label foods. More than just lip service though, because we do know that the small cap stock base sometimes is guilty of trying to hop on, the hottest trends and things like that. Elsa has been in R&D for years before they got to this point. And today their balance sheet looks great, about $10 million in cash. They're getting ready for a US product launch in Q2 2020, potentially signing international agreements in the third quarter. They're owned about 11.15% of the company is owned by a subsidiary of $1 billion Hong Kong listed conglomerate. So that tells you the kind of confidence that international companies have. Patents have been awarded in 22 countries, which is amazing. 44 more are pending. And that shouldn't be a surprise because their executives and advisors, when you get a chance to look at them, are from globally renowned companies and institutions. With us to talk about all of that in more detail is Hamutal. How are you? Welcome to the show for the first time.
Good morning, George. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm ready for the show.
Well, look, it's not a pleasure to meet me because at the end of the day, the pleasure is all ours because we love discovering companies that are doing amazing things, and you guys are doing amazing things. And as a co-founder, our hats off to you. Let's do a bit of a deeper dive. There's so much to cover, but the first thing I want to look at is this. Given the global financial instability that's suddenly taken place in the last 45 days, the first focus I want to look at, because this is probably important to investors, is your relationship with New H2 Limited. That's a subsidiary of the $1 billion, conglomerate H&H. They own 11.15% of your company. What does it mean to have first their financial support? We'll get into the product, into the sales side. What does it mean to have the financial support of a company of that significance?
Yeah, well, it's not only the financial support; it's also the fact that it's a strategic investor. So it goes twofold. And financial support in these days is so important to have, and to see a cash in hand that we are expecting to cover for the next 1.5 years ahead of us. So this is something that's really so critical for investors as much as to the company. Operation, sales, marketing, everything is covered by that, and we are gearing up for launching, as you must know. So this is on one hand. The other hand is facilitating our ability to go to market. So whatever it takes, if we have difficulty due to the status right now with manufacturing, distribution, or anything that's operational, we have their support as a global conglomerate that really has arms everywhere. And this is huge. This is really something that really happened a minute before everything started. And we are so lucky to have that.
Well, and one thing we talk about often on a GoreCom is what I call third-party validation. For me, that's very, very important because as the CEO of the company and co-founder, at the end of the day, no matter what the circumstance, we would always expect you to put best foot forward, talk about the great future that your company has. That's the nature of any CEO at the end of the day. That's why for us, third-party validation is so important. And I think that's what this relationship brings to you, because not only finances, it's also the strategic investment. And I want to tell everyone at home, what I also found very interesting was, as part of the financing, the company put a 12-month hold on their holdings. And they also have anti-dilution rights, which means anytime the company goes out and raises money, if and when, that they have the right of first refusal to participate to their level. So I thought that was amazing, because that's belief in the long term of your company. Here's what I want to talk about: the distribution. You know, you were talking about the strategic. So the distribution side, you're in a distribution MOU, memorandum of understanding, where you want to negotiate some definitive distribution agreements for several territories, and you've listed France, Australia, and China as just a few. Why those countries?
Well, first of all, the thought behind all this was, wherever H&H is strong and has a great infrastructure to support our growth, there we would start. So these are the countries where H&H is very strong, and these are the countries they expect us to start with, and we expect them to take us to the next level. So this is the whole thing about it. It does mean that we will not be present in other countries. Like, right. For example, we started with France. We could do in the same, or a few months later, we could start negotiating other countries with additional distributors. But H&H would give us their infrastructure for the places where they are really strong and can give us an added value.
Well, for people watching at home, and for me, you know, it doesn't take a roadmap to try and connect these dots here. You've got patents in 22 countries already. There's a reason for that. People don't just go and patent their products in countries that they don't have an intention to get to, and 44 more that are pending. I think that's unbelievable. And now that you've got your strategic partner in place for distribution of the countries, it looks like there's it's great to see a strong probability of international, expansion starting from Q3 and going forward. So hats off to you guys on that. But this wouldn't be all possible. Let's talk about the why at the end of the day. Serious company, this is serious business at the end of the day. How you got here is your product, clearly, right? They must believe, you believe, the market believes you have a very strong product. Before we get into that a little bit, how were you guys able to identify, plant-based, non-dairy, non-soy opportunity? Because I believe it's been 7 years of R&D you've been in. For the market, we only found out about, let's face it, because of the Beyond Meat IPO last year. That's when people really started to discover it. How were you and your team able to be 7 years ahead of this, and knowing that 7 years ago, people didn't even consider this?
Well, I think it has to do with several aspects or several reasons. One of them is the fact that we were experiencing a personal pain with the same problem that everybody's experiencing right now, but just in our space. So Uriel, my co-founder and my partner, actually had a granddaughter. She still is there. She still exists, fortunately. And she was suffering for a severe allergy to cow's milk formula that she had at that time. So the reason we started, the trigger for that was actually her, and the fact that she couldn't consume anything that the industry had to offer to her. And for us, it was quite obvious that we need to search for a plant-based alternative, because dairy didn't work. And to a certain concern, the soy, which is the other alternative, which
right.
is also plant-based, but it's not a very viable alternative. It's not a very healthy alternative as it's already known today. Didn't work either. So these were the only options, apart from a very strongly hydrolyzed or hypoallergenic medical formula, which is also based on cow's milk, but it doesn't work for lots of kids because of the compliance to that formula. So these were the three options at the time. They still are the only three options. And that lasted for about a century. So the reason we went there was simply because we understood that the only way to, to get away with this is just plant-based and clean, or minimally processed nutrition. We understood, because we had a lot of knowledge coming from that industry as executives and veterans with very, very long-term experience in manufacturing or infant nutrition and everything else that had to do with it. We understood that the only solution could be going this way. And the things that really are problematic in this industry is that cow's milk is becoming more and more industrialized and more processed. And it is exposed to so many ailments that the whole food industry is exposed to. And it has a toll, it has a price that is taken from our bodies and it's taken from our planet. So it was quite obvious to us. I personally believe in plant-based nutrition, and this is the main diet that I use. And I think that if you stick to that with some more additions to that, but mainly if you stick to that, you will be, if you stick to a healthy plant-based diet, you will remain healthy for your entire life.
Well, what I find amazing is that this started out as a product of love, and you put all your collective brain trust together to get to this point, and more than just lip service talking about trying to fulfill a need and trying to create a product. Your product has actually won awards, right? So that's the amazing that you've got to this level. How big is the market for these kind of products, Hamatel? Because I think the common person, including me, doesn't recognize how big this market is unless you have children or family members that are impacted by it. So how big is, do we even know how big this market is globally, or in the US, or in different markets?
Speaking of a global market, we are addressing an $80 billion market, growing about 7% a year. This is a huge market with really endless room for many other competitors to come. But still, we are the only ones that are entering this space of 100% plant-based, non-dairy, non-soy. But let's think about addressable market, real addressable market for us. We're not going to challenge the whole market at the first stage. So we're looking, and that refers to our go-to-market strategy as well. So we have the North American market as the first market that we would like to enter. And the reason we chose it is because we felt the great demand coming from it, just by getting so many emails from so many parents, even before we were, listed, or just by having just a simple website, and people were Googling non-dairy, non-soy infant nutrition, and they found us. So the greatest demand came from this area of the globe. So it was intuitively first notion to get there, but it was validated also by a very strong market research, a very extensive one that we did, and everything was validated. The demand.
And actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to interject there for a second. So, because I do have the numbers, and market research data is everything today. 82%. So it was a very big statistical sample size. 82% of respondents indicate a favorable view of Elsa products, and 60% showed a purchase intent. That's amazing.
At a certain price.
Right.
At a certain price that is our asked price. This is the SRP, the sales recommended price that we want to sell the product, and that's the price that those 60% of the moms that we in our sample were ready to pay for such a product.
So let's talk about that. So clearly you've identified the right market first, probably without getting off onto a tangent. You're Israeli, I'm Greek. I know one thing about when I go back to Europe, the foods are a lot cleaner, just because there's still more of a reliance on natural products then, but in the US, it seems, and North America and Canada, processed plays a much bigger role. So it doesn't surprise me that the demand is greater here. So what is the plan for the US market? You had announced before COVID, unfortunately entered all of our lives. You had announced that Q2 2020, you're going to go towards the US market. Is that timeline still basically on track? I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a little bit of delay. And B, what is your plan to hit the US market? Because it is a US market, like you said earlier. You're not just going to walk in and take over the whole market on first day. So what does your rollout look like? What do you guys expect?
Yeah, just touching the former question, US market is about $5.5 billion in infant nutrition alone.
Wow.
So this is a market for us. Of course, we're not speaking about Europe, which you're going to touch also, and a bit of Australia and China during 2020 and 2021. So I'm just talking about the North American market, $5.5 billion. And you were asking about our launching timeline. So we haven't changed anything by COVID. Still, we're very cognizant about market mood. And since everything is still very fluid, our manufacturing site in the US is on track with its plans. It's a brand new manufacturing site, so they're commissioned right now, but they're on schedule. So we're in a very strong contact with them on a daily or weekly basis, and currently there's no change in plans, but we are really keeping our hands crossed that everything will remain as is, and they will be able to they will enable us to manufacture on time. And so our plans haven't changed a bit, and we'll do everything in our capacity to make it and to bring a product to the retail shelves at the end of June, by the end of June.
And what level of interest, because it's one thing to have a great product and you've got it, and you've got the manufacturing, which is incredibly important. You've got that, but you still have to get through the gatekeepers at the end of the day. So what level of interest do you have from the retailers who want to carry a novel product by this, or are they recognizing that they should have more plant-based options on their shelves?
Yeah, I wouldn't be very precise if I would tell you that we've already approached a retailer. We haven't approached retailers yet. We have approached brokers and distributors, and this is tier 1 distributors which have been approaching us just by seeing our website or coming across us in Expo West, where we're supposed to be presenting, but unfortunately it was canceled. So I'm talking tier 1 distributors and brokers in the US, which are approaching us, and we are already in discussions with some of them and aiming to actually go into bricks and mortars immediately after the launching on our e-store and Amazon. So this is going to be right after that. I would say 3-4 months after we're launching.
Right.
We're going to be present also in bricks and mortars. We do not wish to be on the nationwide chains immediately because it's too big of a risk in terms of supply chain. So we'd like to start with, gradually with more small independent regional grocery stores in the natural space, and grow into the medium and large grocery chains afterwards.
I like the fact, as someone who my pedigree is from the food service industry, actually, as a child growing up. I like the fact that, and a lot of people at home may not recognize this, they don't know how the industry works, and they might think, well, you have to call a retailer directly, when in fact, most businesses done through distributors and brokers at the end of the day, who already have those relationships. They have the relationships. I'm not going to name retailers because I don't want people to think that in any way that you're talking to them, because I don't even know. But all the big retailers you can imagine, typically it's these distributors and brokers who have these multi-year relationships, 20, 25-year relationships. They sell product, they represent products. I like that because they bring instant credibility to the product, because when they show up to their customers, they say, hey, you know, we've serviced you for 25 years. Now we're bringing Elsa to the table. They get their attention. I also like the fact, correct me if I'm wrong, that also helps you control costs, because the way that brokers and distributors work is on commission at the end of the day. Otherwise, you could potentially spend millions of dollars on hiring, and maybe you are, so I don't, but on hiring a US based team of direct sellers, direct marketers who are pounding the pavement and not get very far, because that's very difficult. So is that what you're actually, is that how you're actually approaching the US market, Hamatal?
Yes, exactly how you described it. And we're not getting any direct sales team right now. It's not, we don't think that it's the right time to do it. It's not the right stage. We would start with brokers that would engage with distributors, that would engage with their own net of retailers, and grow gradually and very carefully, not to, I mean, if you grow too fast, sometimes you can lose it. So
Absolutely.
we better gradually make sure that our supply chain can provide, and then grow into higher and higher levels.
Yeah, and there really is no way, there really is no other way to attack the US market. It's too big to suddenly try and blanket the whole market in one shot. So the way you're going about it, and look, I would challenge you if you're going about it differently. If you're going to say, George, you're going to hire 100 people and they're going to blanket from Seattle to Florida, from Alaska to Texas, I'd actually challenge you on that. But I love the fact that that's your business plan, because it's the least risk at the end of the day, and it clearly you've already got the interest out there. So, that kind of phase out is a great plan. Competition. Let's talk about this.
One thing
Sure.
About creating the demand. I mean, the most important thing is a consumer. It's a consumer good. I mean, it's a B2C business, or so the most important thing, even if you are on the shelves of I don't know how many chain stores, still someone has to come and grab a single can out of the shelf. And this is the most important thing, to create the demand in a proper way, and in proportion to where you are, and to as much as you are being on shelves or whatever. And this is what we're trying to do. And we've just started, just testing the market with social media efforts, and we see huge engagement rates compared to what we're trying to do. So, I mean, people are really interested in such product. We just started it right now, just a few days ago, and we see very, very high engagement rates in social media to our marketing efforts.
That's and everyone, and I think a lot of that's probably attributed to, a lot of people may not realize this, because obviously they're learning about the company, but you actually have the world's first 100% plant-based and non-dairy and non-soy baby formula. You're not just kind of putting out some plant-based food. Yeah. How big of a competitive advantage does that give you, Hamatal?
Well, I'm not objective, but I think I think that this product is really disruptive. It's not only in the ingredient aspect of it, but it's also on the approach, on the manufacturing approach. The advantage is that the approach is a whole food manufacturing approach, which is contrary to whatever formula you pick, however organic it would be, and however the cow was grass-fed instead of being, artificially fed by any kinds of artificial food filled with pesticides. However organic it would be, you still have to touch the chemistry of the product or of the ingredient. You still have to break it into its building blocks: protein, carb, and fat. You can't avoid it in this industry. What we do, we don't do that. This is the whole disruption. It's not only about being plant-based, because you can be plant-based but not very healthy, and there are lots of examples to that.
Sure.
Plant-based doesn't mean, it's not an equation of being healthy. Being vegan doesn't mean you eat healthy. You have to have plant-based, clean nutrition, minimally processed, and wholesome and balanced. It has to be balanced. So this is what we do. And the whole manufacturing process is different in such a great way and a disruptive way, because we really changed that industry forever doing that, taking 3 whole ingredients without touching their chemistry and making them like, or I would say a type of breast milk analog in a minimally processed way. This is the main thing that we're doing. It's not only about plant-based. And this is the first thing that happened in this industry for a century. This is the first time that it happens.
So for those of us at home who don't know the intricacies of, other products in the marketplace, is that a massive differentiator versus versus George's plant-based baby nutrition company? Is that a big differentiator, and that gives you big competitive advantage?
Any other type of formula that I know, I don't know of any other formula that does this. And any type of formula, as I said, the more organic, the more organic that it would be, grass-fed, or also soy formulas, the same. Everything has to do with changing the chemistry of the ingredients. And we are doing that in a very minimal way, which has never been into this industry. This is the disruption.
So
Yeah.
Last question for you, because it would be, it wouldn't be authentic if I didn't ask you, how tough is the competition from then a branding point of view? So clearly it sounds like you have a superior product, and that's just math, right? It's just, you can see that your product versus George's product, for example. But from a branding point of view, what are your challenges to get through to your target market? Will you be able to get that message through to your end customer, who for now maybe has another brand that they've been relying on?
Yeah, well, this is what our agencies, our service providers that are our partners on that aspect are trying to do. This is what we are as a team are trying to make this clear and bring this message in the most comprehensive and clear way that we could to make this notion, to create this notion with our customers, with our base customers, which we know are so, they're waiting for such an opportunity to come, and they couldn't have even imagined that it would happen. But we are trying to make this message as clear as possible and to simplify it, because there are lots of bits and bytes and all this minutiae and technology and manufacturing, which really doesn't interest anyone. But what's interesting is the bottom line, that you get a clean and minimally processed product for your child. And that has a lot to do with its health and long-term health. And I think there are certain people or certain groups that understand that very easily. That's really intuitive for them. Some are less, but this will all be learned during the years. I think the world is going that way anyway, and people will be, lots of people are self-knowledgeable already. They know a lot about nutrition. And this is going to...
And especially when it comes to their toddlers and infants and babies, they really, and given the fact that the social media engagement response you've got is really high, the survey, the market research you've done, very high, you've won awards, I love the fact that you're being very objective about those challenges, because that shows me you're a very aware CEO that isn't just drinking the Kool-Aid and believing, nothing can stop you. The fact that you're able to recognize that is great, but at the same time, award-winning market research, social media response tells me that you're already doing a great job of it, and it's going to be pretty hard for the market to stop you. That's my last question, and that's parlays to my last question, Hamutal. Do you have much doubt as to the success of the company over the next 24 months? Not short term. I don't like when people talk, investors sometimes want to hear about what's going to happen 3 months from now. This isn't a 3-month company. This isn't a short term. How how confident are you that, 24 months from now, you'll be sitting on some nice shelves in the US, in France, in China, and all those other countries? How confident are you that Elsa is going to be succeeding?
I'm 100% sure. I'm not God, but I am 100% positive that we're going to have great success. I can feel it. I can see from responses that we're getting from consumers, from investors, from all our stakeholders. And I can see that we are going very carefully we are sticking to our plan, and we're doing everything, weighing whatever we can, all the factors, and getting, step by step, by our plan, and we've been there for 7 years. So
yeah,
we've done that. And to tell you the truth, all of the founders and all of the executives of this of this company have already done that in a smaller scale for other companies, but we've been there and we've done that. So now we're doing it for our brand and our formula, but I know I can feel the need and the demand for such a viable alternative where there are no other options. So I have the 100% certainty that this would succeed.
Hamutal, congratulations on what you and your team have done to this point. Look, we've had hundreds of clients. I've dealt with thousands of companies. It is not easy to be a consumer packaged product company at the end of the day, any kind of consumer product. It's not easy. It's a long process. So many pitfalls. There's so many places you can fall down and fail. Doesn't matter what the passion is. What I've really taken from this interview, and this is the first time you and I have met like this face to face, is that you bring, what I like is you bring a perfect combination of passion and love for this with science and process and business savvy. That's because some people have all the passion, but they just don't have the business savvy and the process, and that fails. Some people are very, they see as a market opportunity and they just want to go make money from it, but they don't have the right amount of passion behind it. And that usually ends up failing. So if there's one thing I've gotten out of this, and hopefully the people at home have gotten out of this, is that you've got it. And I'm going to assume that's your entire team. And for people who are watching at home or listening to this on via podcast, make sure you get to a GoreCom when you do your due diligence. And one thing I want you to take a look at is the management team there, and take a look at their profiles and what they've done and what they've achieved. This is a fantastic team. So it shouldn't surprise you, now that we're done, that the company has the backing of a billion-dollar conglomerate that not only owns a significant portion, but wants to protect through anti-dilution rights. Didn't just make the investment and walk away. It's clear there's a business purpose that they want to help distribute the company's products around the world. You guys have the makings of a great company, Hamutal, and I can't wait to have you on many, many more times as you start achieving milestones with the official US launch and then other launches in other countries. It's going to be fun to watch you guys. And thanks for giving small cap investors an opportunity to participate, in this global paradigm shift, because not very many people, Beyond Meat did its IPO last year and went to $200 a share. And, not very many people have an opportunity to get involved at the ground floor, and you guys are at the ground floor. So thank you and congratulations, and looking forward to having you back next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind support. And we really are keeping our fingers crossed that everything will be well with the COVID and this world would get better after everything that's done. So
well said. Well said. Thank you. You've been watching or listening to Hamutal Yitzhak. She's the co-founder and CEO of Elsa Nutrition Holdings. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol BABY, baby. Now you know why, because at the very beginning when I said why they have that stock symbol. It's great. And for our friends in the US, on the OTCQB under BABYF, BABYF. We all have a lot of time on our hands. One thing about this is we're all at home. There's only so much Netflix you can watch. use this time to do some due diligence, take a closer look at great companies that are going to be born out of all this. And Elsa is one of them. So how do you do that? Get to a Gore.com, get to the company's hub, look at the profile information, look at the management profiles, get over to the company's website, go do your due diligence there as well. And when you've got questions, come back to the forum, ask them, you'll get your answers. And this is how you build your due diligence. Definitely a company to watch for the future. In the meantime, we wish that all of you stay home, stay healthy, stay safe, protect our frontline people who are out there on the front lines trying to help us through all this. And we'll see you next time. Have a fantastic day. Hamatal in Israel, have a fantastic evening over there.